Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalam ala ashraf al-mursaleen wa ala alihi wa ashabi ajma'in. Amma ba'd. فبدأ المؤلف ابن بلبان في أخصر المختصرات. Inshallah, we begin with the kalam of the author Ibn Balban in the book Akhsar al-Mukhtasarat in Kitab al-Siyam, in the chapter of fasting. We discussed in the earlier few durus other ahkam. We begin today with those things that invalidate the fast. طيب. فمن أدخل إلى جوفه أو مجف, يعني the one who enters something to his through the mouth or nose, as we will explain, down the throat. طيب. Here we will use some of the notes we had from Al-Umdah because it was better organized. Now we talk about those things that invalidate the fast. Some things we take for granted. Like every Muslim, if you ask them, they will say eating and drinking invalidates the fast. طيب. But you have to be careful because you don't want to start taking knowledge to be just what you've heard. Rather, we look at what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has ordained in the Quran, what the Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam has ordained upon us in the Sahih Ahadith, what the ulama and fuqaha have established based on that, and then we derive the ruling. So what is the dalil to say that eating and drinking invalidates the fast? So first thing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does in the Quran, وَكُلُوا وَاشْرَبُوا حَتَّى يَتَبَيَّنَ لَكُمُ الْخَيْطُ الْأَبْيَضُ مِنْ خَيْطِ الْأَسْوَدِ مِنَ الْفَجْرِ ثُمَّ أَتِمُّوا الصِّيَامَ إِلَى اللَّيْلِ. What does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tell us? That eat and drink until the white thread, يعني the daylight that breaks becomes distinct from the black, يعني from the darkness of the night when the Fajr light comes. And then, يعني from Fajr, this is the time. And then fulfill your fast and continue your fast, and it means you stop eating and drinking until the night. طيب. So many ahkam from this ayah of the Quran. First thing, what do we realize? That the beginning of the fast is Fajr as-Sadiq, yani the true Fajr. We'll talk about the earlier Fajr and the true Fajr. Until the night. When is the night? Some of the people of bid'ah, they say this means Isha. But no, in Islam the night begins at Maghrib. When Salatul Maghrib comes in, this is the night. So when the adhan of Salatul Maghrib happens, yani the time of Salatul Maghrib enters, that means eating and drinking is no longer forbidden for you. طيب? From Fajr until Maghrib, based on the clear ayah of Quran. And the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allowed us to eat and drink in the night and then told us that this time you fast until the time for Maghrib comes shows that this is a dalil. طيب. In addition to this, as Shaykh Ibn Uthaymeen in Majalis Sharh Ramadan, he mentions that there are many ahadith that give the same meaning. So from the Quran, we know eating and drinking is not allowed during the day in Ramadan. طيب. Secondly, from Sahih, Mutawatir Ahadith, Mutawatir Ma'nawiyya, in the meaning. طيب. Third, Ijma'. Imam al-Nawawi mentioned that there is consensus of the Muslim Ummah that you cannot eat and drink or have spousal relations in the day in Ramadan. طيب. Shaykh Ibn Uthaymeen, he mentioned that this includes those things that would go down the throat or يعني through the nasal passage other than food and drink as well. يعني, so you have to be careful. And even if you are, for example, swimming in Ramadan and you go deep and you start to inhale water, it goes down your nose or throat, even if you didn't have the niyyah of eating and drinking, it will invalidate your fast. طيب. Some of the people, they go a little too far. They say even if you go in the water and water goes through your pores and your fast is invalidated. No. This is not the same. And if you go and swim, as long as you don't get water to your nose or mouth, it does not enter through your throat or into the body like in this manner, then your pores of your body and things, this is not something that we find in the Sharia. And what is the dalil that does not invalidate the fast? We want to speak everything from dalil. Right? What is the dalil? Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, they took bath in the day in Ramadan. Okay? During the day, they took a bath. So if water going to your pores invalidated your fast, then it would have invalidated it, but it does not. Tayyib. But what about when you're performing wudu? And when you perform wudu, you take water into the mouth and nose. For this we have a sarih, a clear, sahih dalil for it. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam told us to sniff the water deeply into the nose, except if you're fasting. So when you're fasting, you can put water in your mouth, but it should not go down your throat. So you do not gargle. You know, when some people, when they're making wudu, for mubalagha, they gargle. They take the water to the back. Regularly, that's not an issue. But if you're fasting, you should not. And when you're putting water into your nose, regularly, it's mustahab to take it in deep. And as we've mentioned, this is from Sahih Ahadith, as we just read. Also, doctors, they tell us that when you put water into the nose, there are germs and bacteria that are stuck in your nose hair that flush out, that saves you from getting sick. Great. But if you're fasting, you still put water in your nose. This is one of the obligatory aspects of wudu. But you don't take it deep so that there is no danger of it going past through your nasal passage into your throat. So when you're fasting, you don't sniff the water deep. You still put water in your nose, you snort it out, but it does not go past your throat, so you're fine. Tayyib. Then we get into the issue of other methods of eating without the mouth and nose. Tayyib, how is that? May Allah protect us all, but if anybody's had kidney failure and think, you know about dialysis. Dialysis, it replenishes your body through salts and other nutrition without going through the mouth or nose. Other people, may Allah protect us all, who've been sick through fevers or extreme sick, you will go and they'll give you a drip with glucose or electrolytes or whatever to replenish your body, even though you're not eating and drinking. That type of eating and drinking, it invalidates the fast. Even though you're not eating with your mouth or nose, but you're giving nutrition to your body. Tayyib, very important. You're paying attention? Okay. If you need dialysis or if you need a drip and if you're sick, please take it. We're not saying don't do it. We're just saying don't fast that day. You're okay. If you're sick and you need treatment, it's obligatory. We discussed this in the last dars. It's obligatory upon you to get that treatment, because in Sharia, one of the maqasid, one of the goals of Sharia is to protect the life. So if somebody needs dialysis and they're like, no, I'm very pious, I'm going to fast, and they don't take the dialysis and they die, this is a sin. Why? Because life is not for you to gamble with. This life is a amana from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you have to protect it. So if you need dialysis, if you need to get a nutritional drip, get it done. But if you have a shot, an injection shot that is not nutritious in itself, it's not water or just being given to the body or some kind of salts or foods or nutrition, rather it may be some kind of medication that is not nutrition in itself, it's a medication, that does not invalidate the fast. Okay? So when you get shots or if you get a drip, there are different types. If there is a type that is meant to give nutrition to the body, then that invalidates your fast because it's in place of eating and drinking. If you get a shot, like maybe meningitis or something, but you get a shot and it's not nutritious, it's just a medication, right? That does not invalidate your fast because there's no dalil for that, and it does not take the place of eating and drinking. And this is what Mufti Muhammad Ibrahim, he was the head Mufti before Shaykh Ibn Baz, and Shaykh Ibn Baz and others, they wrote in great detail about this, and this is what they put forward. And this we find across the book. Even if you look in the fatwa of the Ahnaf in Ta'lim al-Haq and stuff, they mention the same thing. That those things that are for medical treatment, such as kidney dialysis, in which blood is extracted, cleansed, and then returned to the body with additional chemical substances, such as sugars and salts, then this invalidates the fast. If there is an injection that does not do that, it does not invalidate the fast. Tayyib. Now, when we look at other issues, one of the things that alhamdulillah, we don't have to deal with a lot, but there are people who deal with this, is the issue of chewing tobacco or snuffing tobacco or cigarettes. And may Allah protect us. First thing, as Muslims, you should not be chewing tobacco or snuffing tobacco or smoking cigarettes. All of that harms the body. All of that is haram. It's forbidden to kill yourself, as people do with cigarettes and things like this. May Allah take us away from these things. But if we talk about just the Shar'i hukam having to do with siyam, if somebody drinks alcohol, obviously we know that drinking alcohol invalidates your fast, so that's not something we need to discuss. But what about somebody chews tobacco? They're not really eating it, they're chewing it, or they snuff it in their nose, or they smoke a cigarette. The ulama of Islam, and as I could find from the Ahnaf, from the Shawafiya, from the Maliki and Hanabila, they all agree that it invalidates the fast. Shaykh Ibn Uthaymeen and others have mentioned this, but first I'll begin with Talim al-Haq. Talim al-Haq is a very small book that we studied a long time ago. For the Hanafi fiqh, it said it is not permitted to smoke cigarettes or inhale its smoke. In the time of Ramadan, it invalidates the fast. Shaykh Ibn Uthaymeen said, Bila shak, there is no doubt that smoke from a cigarette reaches the stomach and inside the body and reaches the lungs, and it is inhaled through the throat, and everything that goes through the throat that reaches the stomach inside the body invalidates the fast, whether it is beneficial or harmful. Even if the person were to swallow a bead from a masbah, the tasbih, if you did it on purpose obviously, or a piece of iron or anything like that, it invalidates the fast. So it is not essential that it has to be nutritious when being swallowed. So now we find a difference. When we talked about injections, that's a different issue. But if you put something past your throat, whether it's through your nose or your mouth, even if it's not nutritious, like the smoke from a cigarette, which is harmful, it still invalidates your fast. Just as some advice, and there is a video, I'm not just talking about the people here. If there is a Muslim, may Allah protect us all, that has this disease of smoking, then the good opportunity for them is Ramadan. In Ramadan, as a Muslim, you're going to have to not smoke all day anyway. It's a good time to just kick it, and you just kick the habit. You're going to be going all day without it, kick it tonight. If you can kick it in Ramadan, you can kick it in Shawwal, you can kick it the rest of the year. It's something that doesn't benefit a person anyway. So we know, we've seen people with throat cancer. I saw a person who had throat cancer because of smoking, and they had to have a hole dug in their throat because they couldn't speak or use their mouth anymore, and they would smoke cigarettes through that hole. They would put a cigarette to that hole and smoke it. SubhanAllah. This is the problem with the nafs. If you let it go, it destroys you to the lowest of the low. Asfal as-safilin. Khair. Now moving on to, what about smelling atar or putting kuhl to the eyes? In essence, as the Shaykh Ibn Uthaymeen in his Sharh of Zad al-Mustaqni' says, that in essence it does not break the fast. But if it is taken so much, especially the bukhur, that you start to taste it in the back of the throat, when you start to feel it in the back of the throat, then it does invalidate the fast. The Shaykh Ibn Uthaymeen said it is permissible to use kuhl and atar during the day or to smell it, except for bukhur, because the incense contains particles that can reach the stomach and that has smoke. The Maliki madhab, in the Hashia of Ibn Dasuqi in Sharh al-Kabir, he says if the smoke of bukhur or a stem or the steam from cooking pot that reaches the throat, the day must be made up. This is the Maliki opinion. If it reaches through inhaling deliberately, whether one does that or they do it unintentionally, but they have the ability to stop it. So meaning, if you are going through a street and there is smoke and you're just going through, you're fine. But if you have the ability that you don't smoke, you don't inhale it, and you start, you try to get a sniff in, and it starts to give a taste in the back of your throat, then it invalidates the fast. Smelling food by itself does not. If you just smell food, it does not. But if there is food being cooked and stuff is being thrown in, or particles are going, and you go and you try to inhale it enough that you start to taste it in the back of the throat, it invalidates the fast and has to be made up. This is the opinion of the Shafi'i madhab, as well as Imam al-Nawawi mentions in al-Majmu' and the Hanabila, as Shaykh Ibn Uthaymeen has mentioned. Now we come to the question of tasting food. Especially our sisters and many of our brothers, mashallah, they cook in the day in Ramadan, more here than other places. So can you taste food in the day in Ramadan? Imam Ahmad, rahmatullah alayh, he said that I prefer it should be avoided. It's better to avoid tasting food, but if it is done, it does not affect the fast as long as it does not go to the throat. Shaykh al-Islam Taqiyuddin ibn Taymiyyah, he elaborated on that. He said tasting food is makruh if there is no need for that, but it does not break the fast. Shaykh ibn Uthaymeen, he also said the fast is not invalidated by tasting food as long as one does not swallow any of it, but if there is no need for that, then it is makruh. Tayyib. Now, what is the dalil for this? The dalil for this is Ibn Sirin and others, they mention from Sahaba, aqwal that mention this clearly, that if food is tasted, there is jawaz, as from Ibn Abbas and others. So for example, if somebody is cooking and they just put the food on the tip of their tongue to make sure that the food doesn't have too much salt or something like this, they can do that as long as they spit it out, wash their mouth out, they don't swallow any of it. But if somebody's not cooking, like if you're not the one cooking and you just go to the kitchen and you're like, I want to taste it, this is makruh. If you taste it and you swallow it, your fast is broken. So the issue is, if you don't have to, just don't taste it. It's okay, right? Inshallah, your husband won't be that upset. Just cook it, right? But maybe some brothers have anger issues, or maybe some sisters, and if their brother is cooking and doesn't want his wife upset that day, and he tastes it just enough to taste, and then spits it out from the hadith Ibn Sirin and others have mentioned from Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhuma, then there is jawaz, out of necessity. But unnecessarily, it's makruh, and if it goes down your throat, it invalidates your fast, so best not to take that chance. That brings us to an issue that we deal with a lot, and that is brushing your teeth in Ramadan. Now, and I want to make a point. Some of our ulama and du'at and tullab ilm, they sit in a very segregated world, right? So they don't have to worry about going to job interviews or going to school and dealing with professors or neighbors and things. So they're just like, don't do it. Like, I understand, but what is the shari'i hukam? Because some of us may have job interviews, and in Ramadan your breath is kicking as it is, and you're gonna go in and you're just waking up. One is the smell from the stomach, but then there is a smell from the mouth. So there is the question should be asked, and we are not here to make up our own fatwa. We go back to the ulama. Shaykh Abdul Aziz ibn Baz rahmatullah alayh, one of the great ulama of our time, may Allah have mercy on him, the head mufti of Saudi of his time, he said there is nothing wrong with brushing the teeth so long as one is careful not to swallow any of it, just as it is prescribed for the fasting person to use the siwak. We'll discuss the siwak inshallah, but the issue here is of brushing your teeth. Because with the siwak or the brush by itself, it's not a big deal, but the toothpaste is what we're worried about. So when you use toothpaste, it has a taste. We realize that. But as we mentioned earlier, to taste the food, there is jawaz for it. So if you use toothpaste, even if it has a taste, but none of it goes past your throat, it is permissible. But unnecessarily, it will be makruh as well, because you're taking that chance. So if you can, when you wake up for suhoor, before the adhan of fajr, brush your teeth. Floss, brush, dental hygiene, important, we're with it. Use siwak, all of that before adhan. Once the adhan of fajr happens, the best thing, then you don't. But if you have some important issue, you're going to go in, and you're presenting your master's thesis, and your non-Muslim professors are going to be there, and you want to, you have that situation. If you do brush your teeth, you can just make sure you don't swallow any of the toothpaste. If you swallow the toothpaste, it will invalidate your fast, or the water from while brushing. So if you can do it without swallowing it going down your throat, you do it, spit it out, you're good, there is jawaz. This is what Shaykh ibn Baz, Shaykh ibn Uthaymeen also said the same thing. He said the answer is that it is jaiz, it's permitted, but it is preferable not to use them because toothpaste has a strong taste and it may go down the throat. Instead, doing it during the night or before the adhan of fajr is better. Shaykh ibn Uthaymeen in his Majmu' al-Fatawa. Tayyib. Inshallah, everybody good? Keep going? I want to be... Okay, good. Vomiting, throwing up. What about vomiting? As for the type of vomiting that breaks one fast, then it is only when it is self-induced. When you make yourself throw up, this will invalidate your fast. But if it is something that you cannot control, it does not invalidate your fast. In Zadul Mustaqni', it is clearly mentioned as the hukam, and in Umdah, and Ibn Balban has also mentioned it. And the Sahih Hadith, that is the proof for it. What is the dalil for it? About vomiting, if it's self-induced, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, the one who cannot help vomiting does not have to make up the fast. But the one who vomits deliberately has to make it up. So what is the hukam? And this is a sahih, clear hadith on this issue. Is if you go and you feel like you're not feeling well, you put your finger in your throat and you throw up, you make yourself throw up, your fast is invalidated. But maybe you had a big suhoor and it didn't agree with you and the day started and you just threw up involuntarily, your fast is fine. If you cannot control it, you're fine. But to make sure we understand, if you are going to vomit in Ramadan, just vomit. What you don't want to do is the vomit comes up to your mouth and then you swallow it. I know it's nasty, but I have to discuss it. I got calls last Ramadan. So what does that mean? Let's say you're driving, like the brother who called me, he was driving, he started to vomit. It came in his mouth, but he was afraid that it was going to break his fast, so he stopped himself and swallowed it back. What he did invalidated his fast. If he had just thrown up, he would have been fine. Because now the food has come past your throat, and then you take it back down, so you are invalidating your fast. Alright, I know it's nasty, come on man. I don't like discussing it either. Ibn Qudama writes in Al-Mughni, the one who makes himself vomit has to make up the fast, but for the one who cannot help vomiting, does not have to do anything. And this is the opinion of the Madhab al-Arba'. I didn't find any khilaf on this issue from between the different madhahib. In Mukhtasar al-Quduri in the Hanafi madhab, it also says, for the one who is overcome by vomiting, his fast is not broken. And then it continues, if one deliberately makes himself vomit a mouthful, then it has to make up the day. Imam al-Khattabi, he also says, لا أعرف الخلاف في هذا المسألة. I do not know of any disagreement on this mas'ala between the ulama. The issue of, I'm not going to go, if you think that was uncomfortable, self-pleasuring, right? Leave it at that. If it reaches a level of climax, it does invalidate the fast. I'm not going to go any past that. Spousal relations in the day, obviously it does invalidate the fast. Because the ayah of the Quran is a clear dalil in Sahih Ahadith. Tayyib. The next issue gets to be the issue of cupping. Cupping that's done. And that's important because if we look at cupping or the issue of cupping, then it also includes the issue of blood transfusion or giving blood. When people give blood during Ramadan. So here, what is the clear and sahih opinion is cupping, it invalidates the fast. I know the hadith of Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu al-Bukhari as well, but as Ibn Hajar has mentioned in Fath al-Bari, and as Shaykhuna Ibn Baz and Shaykh Ibn Uthaymeen and Ibn Qudama al-Mughni, there are some things in the wording that showed not to be in the Zahir meaning. What we know from the Sahih Hadith is Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam told us the one who does cupping and the one who has it done have both broken their fast. So this is what is rajih. And I'm not going to go in great detail here, but if somebody wants to discuss the issue more, you can sit with me. So if you give blood, right? If you give blood, just a couple of small things of blood, then that does not invalidate your fast, because regularly bleeding does not affect the fast. But if it's a lot of blood, as would be in the case of getting cupping done, then it invalidates the fast from the Sahih, Sarih, Dalil. And this is what is rajih, as Ibn Qudama and Ibn Rajab and others have mentioned. So if you're going to get cupping done, get it done in the night or after Ramadan or before Ramadan. From the hikmah behind this, Ibn Mubrad and others have mentioned, is that when you give big amounts of blood, it weakens the body for that moment. Many brothers, when they get cupping done, you start feeling faint and you sit down. And when you're fasting to begin with, then it puts an undue hardship on the body. Now, what about the one who does the cupping? Why does it invalidate his fast or her fast? The reason is because the hadith. And in the hadith is a dalil. But from the hikmah of that is that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said for us not to do this. And if somebody aids somebody in something, they are responsible in it. Yani, for example, drinking khamr is haram. If somebody pours khamr, that's also haram. If somebody sells khamr, that's also haram. Taking riba is haram. Giving riba is haram. Even writing the contract for riba is haram. So in that sense, if Rasulullah ﷺ forbid cupping during the day in Ramadan, then for you to be doing it takes you as a part of the sin. So it invalidates the fast from the Sahih, Sarih Dalil from Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Tayyib. Now, what about when we get to the issue of performing ghusl? Yani, can you perform ghusl in Ramadan? As we mentioned earlier, there are Sahih ahadith. From them, the dalil that Imam Malik has mentioned is Muwatta, that Abdullah ibn Umar, he would perform ghusl on the day of Eid before going out for Eid, and he would perform ghusl in the nights before, and this is after the sighting of the moon. If we go further, in the hadith that Ibn Abi Shaybah has mentioned, he said Ibn Umar radiyan used to perform ghusl on Jum'ah during the daytime in Ramadan. Okay, so what does that tell you? That performing ghusl does not invalidate the fast. Tayyib. What about issues having to do with, for example, somebody losing consciousness? Does it invalidate the fast? Tayyib. So as we mentioned earlier, if somebody loses consciousness just for a part of the day, then their fast is fine. Like somebody faints for an hour, their fast is fine. But if somebody is unconscious for the whole day in Ramadan, and from Fajr till Maghrib, then that fast does not count. If somebody was unconscious for a long time and they gained consciousness during the day in Ramadan, then that day does not count, because they have to have had niyyah from the night before, but they abstain from eating and drinking until Maghrib out of ihtaram for the day, as we mentioned the dalal for this in the last dars. Tayyib, inshallah. Let me stop here because the sisters seem to be sick of the dars now, inshallah. So we'll stop here. We'll continue inshallah next Friday. But we'll open up for question and answer inshallah.